From the Temple in Independence, Missouri, welcome back to CIMM Sessions, our little bite-sized servings of theology, culture, and community of Christ, identity, mission, message, and beliefs and practices. Again, I'm David Lloyd, the director for CIMM through the Graceland and Community of Christ Seminary. Tonight, we have a really great lineup of people who are going to discuss something a little bit new in the life of the church, and that is groups of people in community with each other, not necessarily in the same geographic location, but sharing a love for something that relates to the life of the church. This is the Star Trek Community of Christ group, and they're going to be sharing with us tonight about ways that they've been able to connect a popular icon with the IMMB of the church, with some of the enduring principles and mission initiatives of the church. So welcome, William Cousin-Bryant is our leader tonight, and he'll start off first. So Bill, go ahead.
So we are Star Trek CSC, that is our group name, and here is our URL and our email, just so you have it. And as David said, my name is William Cousin-Bryant, and I'm one of the co-founders of our Star Trek group, and I live in Waynesville, North Carolina, and attend the Greenville, South Carolina congregation, which is part of the Southeast Mission Center. So I wanted to give some background information of how our group got started. And it was at the Southeast Mission Center reunion in 2023, and I met this nice lady by the name of Wednesday. And as I got to know her during reunion, we both expressed to each other the joy we would get from watching Star Trek. And so as the reunion went on, I remember being very busy, but I felt led to go to one of the classes being taught by Larry McGuire. And in this class, he talked about our mission prayer and the impact that it was having on the church. And so then he went on and mentioned about new expressions of community of Christ and gave a number of examples. So after his lecture, I began to think and pray about what I could do and where God's Spirit might be leading me. So sometime toward the end of the reunion, I was seated by a very looming sign of the enduring principles. And as I read them carefully, I got to thinking about how I could see some of these principles within Star Trek. So the wheels in my head began to turn, and I began to wonder what it might look like if we had a group that watched Star Trek episodes and related them to the enduring principles and Christianity as a whole. Well, I felt like I heard this still small voice in my head telling me that I should ask Wednesday to help. So I talked with her briefly about the idea. We agreed to meet together. And so together we became excited about the prospect of using Star Trek to invite others to Christ and to simply fellowship. Our first meeting was on October 12, 2023, and folks, we are still meeting, we're still going strong, and our group continues to evolve. First, we started using just the enduring principles and comparing them. Then Bryce, who you'll hear from in a bit, began adding scripture. And then Ted decided, well, why don't we add mission initiatives to that? And so now, most nights, we kind of look at everything as much as we can. So, the question, how is Star Trek a pop culture icon used in connection to the mission of the church? So that's a big question. Here it is. The mission of Community of Christ as we all know who are here, is about proclaiming Jesus Christ and promoting communities of joy, hope, love, and peace. The enduring principles are at the heart of this mission. Using Star Trek to help all those in the group learn about the enduring principles goes right along with the mission of the church. See, as we're comparing episodes and movies of Star Trek to the enduring principles, mission initiatives, or biblical passages, we are learning ourselves. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is something that we all need, right? So we're learning. We don't have that knowledge, we can't reach out to other people. So then we're able to recognize and use these principles in our daily lives and to help others. And I can tell you, everyone in our group has seen this in their personal journey since we started this group. But it also opens up windows of opportunities to invite others who like Star Trek and are searching for a space to come and be blessed. Star Trek CSC, yeah, it's certainly different, but it is a new expression of Community of Christ. You know, it's ironic that Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, was insistent that religion not be part of Star Trek. And I tell you, he went to great lengths to make it so, as Picard would say. In almost every episode or movie our group has seen the enduring principles and elements of Christianity. Almost every episode, every movie, you can find something. On board a Star Trek ship, whether it's the Enterprise, whether it's Voyager, whatever it is within the franchise, there are many different species and many different cultures working together to accomplish the mission despite their differences. So if one wants a glimpse of what a Zionic community can look like, watch Star Trek. Star Trek CNC, for some of our members, is the main way they experience worship and community during the week. Doctrine Covenant Section 162.5a and 7d states, do not be defined by the things that separate you, but by the things that unite you in Jesus Christ. The call to respond is urgent. Look to the needs of your own congregations, but I like this. Look beyond your walls to the far-flung places where the church must go. Well, at this moment, I can't think of anything more far-flung and uniting than using Star Trek and bringing ministry and using those as examples of enduring principles. And those are, as I said earlier, at the heart of Community of Christ. In a moment, Wednesday, we'll discuss some further details about our group. After that, we have several members that are going to give live examples of what we do. It's fine for me to sit here and talk and all about that, but it's always nice to hear the examples. They will each take an enduring principle and tell us where they saw it in a movie or episode of their choosing. And then at the end, we'll close with a video of an actual meeting where some of our people that couldn't be here will be sharing, so you'll get to see a live meeting going on. And I'm going to now turn it over to Wednesday.
All right. So Star Trek COC, what we do. So first and foremost, Star Trek CFC is a community. We are there to uplift each other, support each other, and help each other grow spiritually. Our mission is to invite people to Christ and into community through Star Trek. Oh, sorry, I'm speaking to my screen. This is the camera I'm speaking to. Hello. Our general meeting structure opens up with a prayer. The facilitator always starts the presentation off with some Star Trek trivia because we all love trivia, and it'll be general trivia and sometimes trivia specific to the episode. The facilitator generally hits on these key points, which is a summary of the plot or of the episode or movie. They will facilitate a group discussion on the enduring principles present, and then they will pre-prepare points to share as well. Same goes for the mission initiatives, and we would hold a conversation about what mission initiatives are present. And then the facilitator will also generally has some scripture prepared that relates to the themes of the episode. Afterward, we generally take prayer requests and take a moment to check in on one another to see where we can support one another. Much like a starship, at its core, Star Trek CFC is a community. All are welcome to beam aboard. And the enduring principles. So we are getting ready to start talking about where we saw the enduring principles in Star Trek. I'm going to start us off with Pursuit of Peace. So when I think about Pursuit of Peace in a Star Trek context, I think of Surak, a legendary figure who led a cultural revolution on Vulcan, for them to drop their warlike ways and pursue a path of logic and nonviolence. Surak featured in a number of episodes, and Surak is featured in a number of episodes and books, but a story arc related to it where his Katra, or soul, was present, takes place in Star Trek Enterprise. And at this point, it's been a long time since the time of Surak, and some Vulcans are starting to think that the teachings of Surak have been corrupted. And so they're seeking the truth, and they form this religious community. Their teacher at first is this man named Siran, and so they're referred to as Siranites. The Vulcan government persecutes these Siranites, frames them for violent acts that the government has committed, like blowing up a Federation embassy. Through all this, the Siranites stay on their path of nonviolence, on their path of nonviolence despite this. They are fighting for the future of Vulcan nonviolently. At the end of the arc, armed with the original teachings of Surak, the Siranites lead Vulcan in a nonviolent reformation that honors both their heritage and points towards peace.
Hi, everybody. I grew up on the original Star Trek. Even though it was aired past my bedtime, yes, I'm that old, I found a way to see it anyway. And I often wonder if my parents ever realized I was hiding behind a corner. I recently viewed Star Trek Prodigy for the first time and was touched by one of the characters, a sweet child in a body that looks like a huge Rocky wrestler. Think of Fantastic Four's Ben Grimm, only rosier. Her heart is pure, and when a captive is imprisoned in the brig, she is concerned that the prisoner might be hungry. So she took a bowl of steaming stew to them. They taught and then gained a little more insight about each other. Grace and generosity. Enduring principles can be seen in diverse expressions of popular culture, and Star Trek is filled with such examples. By joining together with others who share my love of a favorite science fiction series, I am developing the habit of looking for examples of how God's kingdom works. I'm beginning to see it in the real world now. I'm finding things in current events that give me hope, when before I could only see the heartbreaking stories. I admit we don't need Star Trek to find God's presence, But practicing holy attention with something fun has helped me grow into a new spiritual awareness of God everywhere. Besides, I love the trivia we always open our meetings with. Thank you.
Hello, it is me again. And the principle that I chose is responsible choices. And the episode I'm using comes also from Star Trek Enterprise, an episode called Dear Doctor. And in this episode, the doctor and the captain are faced with a serious dilemma. A race that is dying called the Valachians has asked for the crew's help in finding a cure for their disease. However, the doctor and the crew discover there's a second species called the mink that has also evolved on the planet and had the potential to become the dominant species. The doctor eventually discovers a cure, right? But he doesn't believe that he should give it to the Colossians because it would interfere with the natural evolutionary process of the planet. The captain eventually agrees and decides because he realized that they didn't come out there to play God. Even though on the surface it might seem cruel not to give them the cure, it is also responsible because they would be interfering with the natural process of the species. It is always okay to help, but in this instance, their interference could have had unforeseen consequences. One of the main guidelines for Star Trek and the Federation is non-interference policy. And so this is the first time this is seen and continues throughout all the Star Trek series. Peter?
Hi, my name is Peter, and my enduring principle tonight is unity and diversity. And as I think of unity and diversity and how it applies to Star Trek, in the 58 years that Star Trek has been on the air, it has had 12 different series and 13 different movies. So that's very diverse. And they always, through the part of the show and through the plot in each episode, they have a goal and they all work together in unity to get to that goal. And the crew is very diverse. Even from the beginning in 66, the crew has always been very diverse when it wasn't really even a focus of our culture. It was very diverse, and they were able to work together as a team and go to places where they've never been and encounter obstacles that they had never seen or imagined and be successful in their exploration. The third way I see unity and diversity in Star Trek in every episode is when they encounter these species all over the universe. They are always very diverse. They are always very different, but they always have their special abilities to do things and to fix things and to work things out. Sometimes when we think about diversity, unity is not the first word that we come up with in our culture, but certainly in our church, we think of diversity as working together, unified for a common goal. I'm one of the newer members to this group, and I really enjoy this community because every week it makes me focus on the enduring principles, the ones that I really like, that I can see, and the ones that I really have to stretch myself a little bit to see. After a couple months in the group, I started to focus on the enduring principles in every activity of my day and try and see the good things in society and not focus on the harder parts.
Hi, I'm Ted Tinsman, and I'm from Springfield, Missouri. And I joined the Star Trek group in January of 2024, so fairly early on in the progress. It actually took me a little bit of a journey to finally join and attend with some frequency, but I think must have seen the first post about the group on Facebook and thought, wow, this is the best thing since sliced bread. And had a great desire to join in with this. So appreciative of Bill and Wednesday in forming this group. I was asked to share about the enduring principle of the worth of all persons. In a Star Trek episode named Mortal Coil, this is an episode that I had suggested the group review in our weekly meeting. There are several places in this episode where the worth of all persons is demonstrated. First, the worth of a character called Neelix, who is a Talaxian. Of course, you have to kind of nerd out with some of this stuff. But this point or worth of all person is shown because this character Neelix is having a faith crisis. He experiences a near-death experience, and his afterlife is void of any of the teachings that he originally had in his culture and how he grew up and that sort of thing. And so his crewmates convince him that basically not to euthanize himself after this crisis. The worth of all persons is also demonstrated in this particular episode by a young child who is on the starship Voyager, his name is Naomi Wilder, and she requests Neelix's help to put her to bed with a story about Neelix's great forest that one experiences in the afterlife. The value of humankind is a reoccurring theme in many of the Star Trek episodes. Just as Community of Christ emphasizes a God of love, so does Star Trek in its writing, whether it be a love of people with different race, gender, or even otherworldly species. I think Star Trek as a franchise embodies the third bullet point of the worth of all persons is listed in Community of Christ or sharing in Community of Christ, fourth edition, available at Herald House. No, I'm not getting any royalties from the promotion, which reads, we seek to uphold and restore the worth of all persons, individually and in community, challenging unjust systems that diminish our human worth. Like many who have shared, this group brings to my attention on a daily basis the different enduring principles that we have been blessed with as a faith community. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Bryce Tubbs. I've been with the group for about a little bit more than a year now, and I feel like since I've joined this group, I've grown a lot spiritually, not just, you know, not just through um, listening, but being involved. And one of the first um, episodes that I moderated was the Deep Space Nine episode 22, season 3, Explorers, and where Captain Cisco builds a solar sail using the same tools and making everything exactly the same that the Bajorans did to prove that interstellar flight was achieved first by the Bajorans before the Cardassians. And I think by Cisco taking that journey and as we go through a journey of your lives and being involved and just being a part of things, it made him closer and more intimate to the experience of everything, if that makes sense. And as a part of doing that, he fulfilled continuing revelation by showing that this journey was made by the Bajorans and everything that was said was true and proven. And I think that's also true in our daily lives. And you see breaking down these episodes in Star Trek is and applying and then when you break it down in the episodes, you see it in your daily lives and the enduring principles, and you kind of look at your self-analyze yourself and apply those enduring principles to your daily life, and it does much improve. It does really improve a spiritual journey. Um, and I just feel like I've grown a lot. Sorry if I'm a little nervous. I'm not really a public speaking type of person, but um, I do feel like I've grown a lot from where I've started. And I just when I relate this to the Bible, I kind of think of Jesus and how he spoke in parables and how he took examples of those stories and the people in those stories and applied them to our lives. And I can see that very similar process here, and it's very enriching. And um, I just want to say thank you for this group really being strong and holding me up and um, being a part of my life. And thank you.
Hi, I'm Candy Malson, coming from Cumming, Georgia. And like Peter, we came into this a few months back together, and this group has really blessed our lives and incredibly. And so I have the enduring principle, all are called. And what I never really actually watched Star Trek a lot, few times. But what I've come to understand about Star Trek and what I've watched the several times that I have watched it, and then now pretty consistently, we can find, as Bill said earlier, we can find the enduring principles in whichever episode we watch, whichever one. And so with All Are Called, I think I particularly picked out series, The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine in particular, because in All Are Called, God graciously gives people gifts and opportunities to do good and to share in God's purposes. And that is all over the place, from Jean-Luc Picard to all the different species all coming together. I mean, both in our enduring principles, it's the inherent worth. We see that similarity all through Star Trek. We see the universal ministry, the universal community coming together for the greater good with their unique gifts that they've been given. And each acts in their uniqueness, much like our priesthood. We act in our unique abilities and our gifts within our priesthood offices, within the church, right down or up or around, from member all the way through. So what a beautiful experience this has been for Peter and I to share in this. And it has helped our calling and our purpose. We have grown in our calling and purpose in just these past 3 months. And the beautiful shared mission that comes through in every single episode where all are truly called. So I know I speak for both Peter and I when I say thank you so much to this group. Like Bryce, we have been deeply, deeply blessed. Thank you, Bill and Wednesday, for having the brilliant idea. Thank you.
Well, excuse me, I'm Leonard Warnock. I live out in Everett, Washington. I grew up with David Lloyd. We were buds since 6th grade when I lived in Independence. I am a original series person. I sat on my dad's lap as a kindergartner in 1966 and watched the first episode of Star Trek. And as far as this group goes, Bill and I were the first two people to be on this group, the only two people, the first time we met. Anyway, I have to say I'm a professional procrastinator. So I had a tough time preparing much, but what I started out doing this morning was I put in Google, which I call the Oracle, a search for blessings. My enduring principle is blessings of community, which I think is the easiest one of the bunch, because I don't think there's an episode that doesn't have, in Star Trek or just about any show, that doesn't have some form of blessings of community. Anyway, I put in the Oracle, blessings of community in Star Trek. And I challenge you to look for that. It brought up so many things. I can never touch everything. The famous live long and prosper, I can only do one hand, is a Jewish ritual done during a benediction. I mean, you'd have to read up on it. Leonard Nimoy, when he was a kid, was in synagogue. He's being a Jew. They were doing some kind of blessing where I don't know what you call him, the priest, his dad told him not to watch, that he wasn't supposed to watch. And they're giving a blessing. They're doing all their chanting and such, and he does peek. And these guys are holding up both hands in this salute, or it's not a salute, but and it's a strong, like I said, I mean, if you look it up, live long and prosper comes from Jewish belief as well. And let's see here. The Vulcan salute, Mr. Spock is a Vulcan. Maybe Mr. Spock is a character that everybody here has at least heard of. I don't know how many people here are Trekkies, but Mr. Spock is a Vulcan in, of course, Star Trek. And their greetings and their kind of like Hawaiians, where they say the same thing as a greeting and the same thing as a whatever the word is, benediction is live long and prosper, which the other person would say peace and long life, and may your journey be free of incident. I wanted to read something that came up with this Google search that comes from the Relationship Center of South Florida. Life Lessons from Star Trek by Richard Lobel, who LCSW and BCD, whatever that means. But anyway, I'm going to read a little excerpt from that site. Aliens Are Us: Diversity, Acceptance, and Inclusion. Star Trek aliens are a mirror in which we see the best and worst of ourselves, and one in which we see that we aren't as different from one another as we might think. Alex Fitzpatrick times Star Trek inside the most influential science fiction series ever. This might be disjointed because I am a professional procrastinator. 50 years ago, Star Trek explored the strange new world of diversity. The original Star TV series cast included a radically and culturally diverse group of men and women, many of them in leadership roles. In the fictional 23rd century, the Star Trek crew found a galaxy full of diverse life forms. In the show, often emphasized the importance of social skills in sharing the universe with alien creatures. Positive, life affirming social and coping skills such as non judgmental acceptance, inclusive practices at work and in communities, teamwork, negotiation, and compromise. Skills that seem to be practiced all too frequently in our relationships in today's world in general. So, blessings of community. Star Trek is crammed full of it. When I first came to this, I thought, how are we going to find all this? And the very first meeting we had with several people, it's like, oh my gosh, this really works. This is a good idea. There is a lot of our beliefs that could be found and that are represented in all the Star Trek shows and movies.
How this is representing the 9 enduring principles. And so as we talk about this episode, which enduring principle, or you may want to share which one you saw or thought that was pretty applicable?
I think definitely worth of all persons. Neelix is trying to give worth to everyone in the crew. It doesn't matter if it's Naomi, who's not officially a part of the crew, or trying to challenge Seven of Nine to, really engage as she is beginning to begin her journey, through humanity.
What else? Thank you, Umberto. What else do you see in that little first clip?
Well, even though, and I share your sentiment about Neelix sometimes, but he certainly, despite how he comes across, he does demonstrate grace and generosity by, engaging in those needs of other people.
So during the reviving, my notes note the doctor's amazed. Neelix's first words are, "Why am I here?" Mm-hmm. And of course, that question follows him and eats at him as he's going through this faith crisis. How does that strike you? When have you asked that question of why are you here?
Usually when you wake up and you have to go to work in the morning. That one hits you pretty hard. It's the first thing you think, probably. And then, get your coffee in, and then you realize, you look at your kids, you see your responsibilities and the impact your influence has on other people when you go to your job and you have those interactions with people on a daily basis. You ask yourself those questions are kind of defined for you throughout the day as a reminder. That's kind of the way I look at it.
That's good. Thank you for sharing. That's
continuing revelation. And I think that's what Neelix was struggling with, because what I was thinking when watching this and his reaction was that this is what can happen when we're too sure about what we think we believe and the symbols we use in that belief. And then when it doesn't happen the way we expect it, we have a faith crisis instead of seeking more understanding, which is, I think, something we have to learn how to do instead of giving up. Keep searching, keep praying, keep looking.
Yeah, and that's what Chakotay was trying to encourage him to do,
Mm-hmm.
He's like a lot of us, that you have this one singular interpretation of a particular symbol or experience and whatever, and then you run with it. But there's more, as you're saying, Karen, need to go deeper, need to look at it from different sides of an angle or something of that nature.
When I first watched this episode, I was really sad. I was, oh man, I thought we finally killed off Neelix. He has to come back. But oh, never mind. This is actually really good because again, it comes down to that blessings of community. Because if it wasn't for Chakotay, if it wasn't for the rest of the crew really embracing the Talaxian holiday, and then Naomi reminding him, this is your duty. And as we talked about, it is that continuing revelation piece of, okay, I'm no longer solid, maybe in this line of thinking.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you, everyone. Wow. I'm sitting here thinking of this. This is the kind of thing that I think a lot of us, when we're at reunion and it's after the campfire and we're back either in the dining hall or at a tent or something, might be talking to someone about and saying, wow, isn't it interesting how something like this show has been so connective to us and some of the things that we've been talking about at reunion or at church or in our own spiritual walk. And I think that's exactly what's at the catalyst of this kind of group. And is expansive from this group. Now, there are probably a number of you who are either live with us tonight or watching this on video who are going, I have no idea what our Ferengi is. And as a result of this, they're basically speaking another language, and that's okay. This is a group that is primarily focused on a certain piece of cultural iconograph that not all of us will relate to. So for you, it could be the Lord of the Rings books, or it could be Star Wars, or some other medium of popular culture where you go, I really connect to this, and I think it's because of my faith. And let's talk more about how that connects to the faith. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to, and let's first be honest. We have been taught that entertainment is inherently bad in religion. There's something wrong about it. There's something insufficient about it, and therefore I want to first reiterate here that Star Trek is not being worshipped here, nor is it being used as a text of Scripture. It's being used as a cultural expression of where our faith is and how it connects, or sometimes I'm sure doesn't connect with where we are. But all of you from the group, keep your microphones open, and as we go through some of these things, I'd love for you to comment back on, because I really think that that's a key as we try to connect with people who have no idea when we're talking about spirituality what we're talking about. No connection, but you can bridge that sometimes by saying, well, you like Star Trek, let's talk about the Ferengis and capitalism and why that doesn't work with Jesus. And we also recognize that Jesus, as was already mentioned here tonight, was a master at talking about stories in order for people to get a bigger concept. And I think that's really one thing we're talking about. Ted, I saw your hand up.
Well, I'm just going to go back to your earlier comment about language. One of the first sessions I had with the group, they were really teching out. And I was kind of, I mean, I'm not a big, fan to the standpoint that I go to the meetings or these conventions or whatnot. But it really opened my eyes on how a visitor who may not have either a restoration background or even a Christian background, how intimidating that is when you don't know the language. And it really was enjoyable to be loved into this group like we do in our congregations. And it brings to the forefront of our use of language and making sure that we don't make assumptions. I'm reading from the Book of Mormon. Well,
Yeah.
maybe the Book of Mormon is Second Testament of Jesus Christ, or some other non-church speak is important for our ministry.
Good. Okay, we got a few questions here. One is, have you found any series or episodes that were harder to recognize the enduring principles? Anybody have something that comes to mind?
Well,
I can,
future tense. Oh, I'm sorry, Bill.
No, go
Future
ahead.
tense was a difficult one. It's one of my favorites because it involves time travel, but it was difficult to pick out. But there's always something, always.
There is. And I think that was part of the point of the writers in all the series that I watched, is that you can see there's direct connections to what's culturally going on in popular culture and what's the issue going on in the story. And we can go back to the original series. We saw issues of race going on in that original series, and this was right during the civil rights movement. We finally see a woman take over the helm, in Voyager. One thing I had a really good discussion with a group of people with once is how the leadership of each of the ships changed over time, how it went from this one dynamic swashbuckling guy to this group of three who consulted with each other as they made decisions. Kind of the same way we've changed from going to a single line pastor to a pastoral council in most of our congregations. So you can see how some of those connects. Well, I'm just thinking, is there any other thing that connects to what's going on in popular culture right now that you related to from a series?
Something that just kind of sparked my mind. I was going to Deep Space Nine and watching. I've seen almost pretty much every episode of Star Trek except for the Deep Space Nine series, so that's kind of where my focus has been. And one of the episodes I watched was right after New Year's in 2024, where they go to the year 2024, which was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Because it was right after New Year's Day, and I just was kind of comparing a lot of the stuff that was going on to that show and to our lives, and it's just kind of opens your eyes to different perspectives you might not think of. When I guess you would say you'd have the people in that show that were like totally oblivious to what was going on at the ground level, and it's really good episode. You would have to watch it to kind of get a point of reference of what I'm saying, but I just thought it was very unique that they choose the year 2024 to go back in time to, since it's 2024. It was kind of something
Yeah.
that connected to right after
Yeah.
New Year.
Well,
Very
there's
good.
also DS9 really explored, Deep Space Nine really explored some very difficult issues in our culture, from, back in the 1950s, the 1960s, where we had, we have the, and I've lost my words, but this thing with, black versus white, and they covered this whole issue, and I guarantee that who it is watching that, it is a powerful, powerful issue, because I'm talking about civil rights. So that is one areas that they do suffer quite emphatically.
Someone commented, I'm seeing the Writing and Voyage series covers the medical ethics wonderfully too. Yep. Um, and someone else saying, I'm seeing a direct connection to all the value of the enduring principles. I was just sitting here thinking, and the movie, the Voyage Home,
Voyage Home.
yeah, where they go back again to more modern times, and with the idea that the only way they can save the world is by bringing back a humpback whale that has gone extinct, and the world depends on the conservation of this whale. And I thought to myself, a great way to boil down the importance of why we need to treat all creation as sacred, and look at the issues that are going on in the plant and animal population of the world. Any other thoughts on those connections?
All right, so you're talking about connections to what's going on in the world right now?
Yes.
So there's a Star Trek The Next Generation episode. I think it's The Outcast, that talks about trans rights. And hit or miss how well it went. I think it definitely was a positive step, especially like at the time. And I know that Jonathan Frakes wanted to do more, but the network would only allow them to do so much.
Yes.
That was an episode where right, there's this species, and they have gotten rid of, they don't do gender, and there is this one person in this species who's like, I'm a woman, and that's how I feel, and that's who I am inside. And she's very clear about this, and her people are like, she needs to be fixed, there's something wrong. And Riker is like, no, this is just who she is. And then it goes into the issue, they talk about conversion therapy and that too.
Very good. Very good. Rich has asked a question. One thing I loved about Deep Space Nine was that a woman was in charge of security, if I'm recalling that correctly. And yes, and how gender roles, how racial roles. I mean, we don't understand today how big a part Uhura was in the original series. And encouraged by Martin Luther King to stay in the series because he recognized it was an important icon, and that we needed more icons like that. I think these are reflections of what we are talking about when we're at church, and then we go home and we see these and connect to them, and sometimes don't take the time or the fun to share them with each other. And I think that's important, that we do so. So when I learned a long time ago that if I have to teach an adult class at reunion, that I always slip in a Disney movie that has references to whatever the topic happens to be for that week. And I tell you what, I get connections with people more over the Disney movie than any part of the class that I teach. And the reason is because we love the storytelling. And this is what this kind of a relationship has, and we have new abilities to connect with each other. Here's a group of people that are meeting all across the North America right now, and are able to connect with each other over something they enjoy chatting about, and are making it into also where we are spiritually and what we're learning and experiencing in our spiritual life also. I think this is a great example of how we make these connections of community beyond just the local area and into areas that allow us to process a little bit and say what's some more that I can draw out of this that connects to what God is calling me to be and do as a disciple. This is great. Somebody asking where my Mickey Mouse shirt is right now on my outfit. Yeah, I'm in my winter wear, and it's less than my summer wear. I don't have a Mickey on me today, but you'll notice that I do often. Folks, this has been really great, and I really appreciate this group taking the time to share with us tonight and talk a little bit about how this group is. I hope it has drawn to mind for you maybe some areas where you might be able to make connecting groups with stories or popular culture that connects to the church, the enduring principles, and our IMMB.